Speaker to the microphone as we continue here, sailing in the sky with the sun above and the clouds below. My name's Adrian Pocobelli, Artist Journal, May 7th, 2025, broadcasting from the non-space of the mind. On a mission with many shipmates here in our surreal ship, as we look down and look forward in this paradise, this art paradise. We are spoiled by our art experience here. This relatively small community. We are absolutely spoiled. It's quite funny. I've mentioned it before. When I go out, it's real. Maybe you find the same thing. I'm kind of curious. But when I go out, I am chronically disappointed. There are moments. Again, we're going to see Richard Prince. There's a show at Max Hetzler Marfa, which I think is in Texas. I was looking it up. I was like, oh, is that Max Hetzler in Berlin? I would love to see that show. You know, there are moments. Richard Prince, I love the work. The later work, especially, like of the last 10 years. And, you know, and just fine. So, yeah, so often disappointed. Another thing just about late work, I've mentioned this before, but late work of artists is often underrated. But like when I look at the late Warhol, often underrated, I would argue when you see, I've mentioned it many times, the Goethe in the Stadler in Frankfurt am Main. When you see the traveling through the mediums, way back then in, what was that, 86 or 87 when that work came out, probably in the last couple of years of Warhol's life. It's kind of interesting. I would argue, say, John Baldessari, another great example of late work that I would argue, at least in my, particular universe here, eclipses the earlier work. The earlier work, it made me actually really like the earlier work more than I did before. Baldessari, I was always kind of on the fence about. I liked, but I didn't love. It's the late work, though. The emojis that were printed and then paint on top, traveling through the mediums, and printed very self-consciously, with the printing process, separating the CMYK. We're going to see it in the Richard Prince actually coming up. There's a show, kind of a retrospective of the last 10 years, but some stuff worth noting on it. Let's go to Scamra. So this is part of, I believe, Artie Hands has a new show. We're going to see his tweet in a second. This is where this came from. But I don't want to miss the forest for the trees here. Let's see if I can get this working. Let's see. So, okay, the keyboard is working. So May 13th, 14th, Scamra. Of course, I follow Artie Hands. That is a glitch on X when you open the many tabs that you open here. Deep in the heart of texture. The art online is so divine, deep in the heart of texture. So a nice little poem here. And texture. Something we've been bringing up here, I would say from around show 50. So about 2 years ago. And it's interesting. This whole topic of digital texture, when I first started discussing it, what was weird about it, and what I think I commented at the time, or at least in earlier discussions on digital texture, was how little it's discussed, and how it almost felt like we were breaking new ground to a certain degree in that discussion. And I remember on one of those episodes, I wondered aloud to myself, are the academics writing about this? Are the digital art academics saying, hey, what about this digital texture thing? Because it's a weird paradox, because it's a digital artwork. It's not, technically, physically textured. But when we see what appears to be, a kind of layering, or, what do you call this? Is it layering? Is it like when you start to see what, when you break it down, randomness, what makes this textured? It is the appearance of basically physical type traits. We're almost back to the virtual versus the physical brushes. We're seeing this kind of emulation here of physical randomness in here, right? I mean, that's part of the joy of texture. It's not like Scammer is planning out every little, white little mark here, or every little yellow, white little mark here, or everything here. There's a certain degree of randomness that is brought into the equation, which one could argue, and I think I have here before, that this is an inherently modern, and I use the term modern very loosely, but a modern, for lack of a better term, technique. This is a modern phenomenon, one could say, which I think we can date back to, Titian, all the way back to the 1500s in the sense that of Shakespeare being a modern. And what we start seeing, I would argue, in the 1500s, and if anybody can correct me on this, go for it. But where we start to see, with Titian, Tintoretto, we start to see self-conscious use of brushwork. We start to see the brush. It's no longer Raphael. It's no longer Leonardo or Michelangelo, like where the brushwork is basically hidden. So there's something kind of inherently modern, I would argue, about referencing the process. And of course, when we think of modern, artists or artists of the last 50 years, some of the greats, you think of the Richard Princes, you think of the Warhols, you think of the Baldasaris, you think of the Zygmunt Polks. What do they do? Gerhard Richter, great example. Not a huge Richter person, but you have to respect Gerhard Richter and all these different styles. But what is ultimately he doing? What is he doing? And what is everybody else there doing? What is the nature of what they are doing? Their art is a process. And that process, as I've compared it to, almost is like a physical lab, where you are basically doing aesthetic experiments, and if you're good at it, they're working. And that is almost the test. And when they're not working, anybody can put a process together. The key is to put a process together that basically works and pushes things forward to a certain degree, or making, experiences of beauty that perhaps you've never experienced before. I think we're approaching this here. Have you ever experienced a work like this before? This AI artwork, as I say, 8 minutes in for the first time, this AI artwork, this is, and what I love about this in a lot of ways is the public's perception, even in the, institutionally, of what AI art is this in their visual repertoire? Do they have this visual knowledge, so to speak? Do they have this reference point? We were talking about fields the other day as kind of, these, diagonal pixels as kind of like pushing new ground, giving us, again, a kind of gnosis, a kind of visual knowledge. And with this gorgeously textured work here, we start to see it again. And don't forget, as I've mentioned here before, I'm having slight keyboard issues here. As I've mentioned here before, the color. It comes to me, my friends. The color. Scammer's brilliant use of color, which, as he mentioned in a previous comment, let's say 30 episodes ago, maybe 40, how he does a kind of negative color palette work. It's not that he says, make it like this. He says, do this kind of color and then remove these kinds of colors, right? And again, what is the tool here? Likely stable diffusion is the main tool. Scammer often puts, I think, textual inversion. So I'll just say, just finally, let's just quickly look at the piece a little bit closer here, though. Because what do we see is this sun that you've probably never seen like this before. Kind of orange with a nice yellow in this beautiful sun. And then we have this mark making at the back, which seems to be a forest of sorts. Almost has a touch of Max Ernst, very vaguely. You know why I say that? because you also get the wood. This is my favorite part of the work, I think. Also the pixels here. These soft, almost what I want to call unsymmetrical pixels here with brushwork, so to speak. And then you have this wonderful part here, which looks like wood that, the knot of a wood that is turning. Here it's straight, and then it starts to turn, again, giving it an organic feeling. I mean, that's part of the beauty of the randomness is, in a sense, one could argue, finally, you're kind of incorporating part of what makes nature beautiful when you start working with randomness. You see a flower that's beautiful. It's like there is a certain degree of randomness. It's not that it's perfectly symmetrical and that it's all perfectly geometrical, like a Platonic form. Interestingly, I wonder what Plato would have to say about all this. Because randomness, again, this what I'd call very, speaking very big picture, a modern innovation in the arts, culminating perhaps with, at its epitome with John Cage, perhaps, and Rauschenberg. But you could argue others, maybe Jackson Pollock, who I'm not a huge fan of. Interestingly, I don't feel like Pollock's holding up very well. I wonder what other people have to say. Another controversial take. I don't think Rothko is holding up very well. Interestingly, as my friend said, finally, not to go on too many tangents here, as my friend Arnaud said, it photographs, referring to Rothko, it photographs very well. But there's one here in the Neue Nationale, and you look at it and you're like, I'm not moved by this. Anyways, not to cast shade on Rothko. We don't do that here. So all to say, just a spectacular work here from Skamra. And so here is Skamra's work. We've seen probably half of these on the show. I've been following Skamra's work for, again, years and years. Network error. We have a keyboard error. We have a network error. Hopefully, this doesn't cause us any issues with the videos. Let's continue here. So Artie Hands, all of the artists in the upcoming Artie Gallery show. Of course, I follow Artie Hands. Deep in the heart of texture. So also PP Universal. So this was a classic. I think I started a show with this, actually, way back when that one came out. That was a brilliant work of art by PP Universal out of Buenos Aires. And here is some more. So again, playing with texture. And forgive me, let me just go on the phone, the backup plan here, and because we're going to run into more issues here. Here we go. So we have the skull, we have the body, and more. The gun. So again, kind of you might say a cousin but a distant cousin of Yuri J, where you kind of make the outline and then you fill it with patterning. This kind of idea. So it looks like a cool show. Here's another one just released by Skamra, where the textures are getting more intense. And you have to admire Skamra's prolificness. Again, it inevitably goes somewhere. And consistency. And again, you look at the color. Once again, one of the most powerful, underappreciated, I would argue, tools in the toolkit here. This is just beautiful work. So that is coming up, Artie Hands on texture. That should be good. And so here we are, last episode. Okay, let's see what the comments are. Ed Marola, 421, impressive. Yes, Ed, it is happening here. It's pretty amazing to me too, when you think about it. 421. I mean, the first 10 were like Spotify experiments over a couple of years, but basically, yeah, I mean, we're basically at 411 videos, which is quite astonishing. That's more than a year in like 2.5. I guess we're going on 3 years, insanely enough. Kujib, also known as Waffles. Glad you busted out of the pen, Poco, and you got a Rata BTC piece out of it. Excellent. Yes, so back to the jail installation photo at Nagel Drexler, I believe it was. And thanks for discussing those pieces. For what it's worth, I have shied away from combining software for a few months now. Seems more interesting to push them into weird directions and creating new outcomes hack their limitations. Thanks again and stay free, my friend. Interesting. Beautiful. Thank you for the comment. And a very interesting because it sounds good. Hey, let's combine Mario. Let's combine Fantavision, right? Deluxe Paint. Let's put them all together and see what madness we get out. But one could imagine when you go through this process that you can start to run into kind of it all. That's where it might sound good in theory, but in practice, perhaps it's better to just say, "Here's my hacked Fantavision," so to speak. It's like a modded, TB303, so to speak waffles, to speak waffle language. I think, it's kind of like modded out or like synth Spreka, so to speak. So very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, and good to know. And the fascinating, huge secular trend here in digital art is artists making their own tools. Son of Lost G, Mallow. So that new platform that is aggregating object. Interesting you bring up that it's been at the front of my mind lately. We're starting to see more abstraction of payments. Verse has empowered minters and secondary buyers to pay with Bitcoin, Sol, ETH, or credit card for a while. And I think Ethereum just came out with an update where you don't need ETH. You can use other coins to pay for maybe gas, if I understand correctly. So it's kind of a general trend, which is quite interesting in and of itself. Let's continue. OpenSea seems to be iterating towards the same goal. Magic Eden also. A part of me can't help but feel something is lost when a piece of work on a specific chain has payment fully abstracted. Indeed, this may be the good old days, so to speak. Although, from a mainstreaming point of view, or this scene going beyond, a few thousand people, right? Maybe it's good. As far as just like people like my brother or whomever, right? Being like, oh, I can do this. I just need my USDC, which will probably be turned into a legal thing. I think it already is a legal thing, right? A part of me can't help but feel something is lost. What then differentiates culture on ETH, Sol, Bitcoin, etc.? And this is an interesting point. Again, this may be a kind of good old days situation where eventually these become homogenized. It's actually quite, one would imagine, as things become more efficient and, things go towards, are things moving towards simplicity or complexity? A profound metaphysical question. But one would think that these kinds of issues are going to simplify. Right? Objectively, a better experience for a majority, though. So I get it. Indeed. Yeah, so nice observation there, though. Son of Lost G. Great to hear from you. Also on Twitter, nice response here. So thank you for the support on it. Phenomenal job identifying the streaks on the China. So I believe that is over here that Owen is mentioning. Here, the only black skies I can think of are Ribs of Our Savior, owned by OG Crooked West, and Eternal GN edition of 8. So good observations. Okay, so this one is dark, so I don't know if we could say this one counts. And what Owen is talking about is, you see the black in the background, the black and white that's animated? Die with the Most Likes has released a few works, a series one could say, or has a certain kind of work where it's just black and white, and I was commenting how you don't often see the color versions and the black and white together. Is this the first one? But this one here, I thought we saw one. Is it this one? I thought we saw one, but anyways, we're close here, and so you kind of see it here. For some reason, I thought I saw something that was a little closer to the black and white, but here, it is close. Indeed. So thank you for pointing that out. There are probably scholars of Die with the Most Likes work out there on X. So thank you, Owen. Appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Gogolitis. Actually, let's just see. Very welcome. Great breakdown of old shows. Always appreciate your views on art. I watched the whole thing. Have a great day, my friend. Indeed. Thank you for watching. Gogolitis. Haha, sometimes I feel like no one sees the little messages I sneak in there. Thanks, Adrian, for picking up on that. And actually, I'd like to clarify the reasoning behind what I said. When I say the world is a work of art, I truly mean it, literally. In another one of my posts, I said that video games are a total art form because they can contain all other forms of art, or at least are destined to in the future. Very interesting. A medium that encapsulates all other mediums, at least digital. And since I believe the world is a kind of virtual reality, all of this seems to follow with undeniable logic. If the world is a simulation, or we might say a kind of video game, and if video games are a total art form capable of containing all others, then by definition the world itself is a work of art. At least that's how it appears to me. So thank you, and I believe that was where we're discussing the world. Yes, so thank you for explaining that. And yeah, sometimes I am just, this is a huge improvisation here, this show. It's basically one take. So sometimes I will take what someone says and run away with it for whatever might inspire me at the time. But in great thoughts, Gogolitis, and thanks for chiming in. Die with the most likes. This is great. Damn, man, this is such a kind breakdown of the piece. Appreciate you taking a moment to consider it. Well, such a nice individual. For such a critical eye. Such a nice individual. Die with the most likes. We have another comment also in a retweet here. So thank you, Die with the Most Likes, the artist here who made that incredible work that sold for like $38,000 or somewhere around there. Incredible. Mr. K, great to hear from you again. Sonso, and again, this relates to the Go-Go, or it's similar to the Go-Go comment. Good episode. Just to clarify, my post was about a non-technical term for the entirety of NFTs as a class, not art. Okay, so as a class, this is why I call them digital objects, but I might be mistaken. Let's see what you say here. Art can have its own designations. You can see my back and forth with Monk Anthony for context in the replies. So, so I should take a closer look at that, but Sonso clarifying on what they're saying. NFT world assets, or what was it, digital world assets, world to me seems unnecessary. From the putting on my editor's hat. And assets is financial, but maybe, as an asset class or as a financial class, I think it completely works. Digital assets, and I believe it's used. Again, maybe I'm misunderstanding. But in terms of the class, one might say even call it the metaphysical class of thing that NFTs are, I prefer digital objects, especially if we were trying to kind of get beyond this perception and this kind of overly crypto, terminology. I like digital objects, and so it continues. But thank you for watching, and thank you for the comments. Always very topical and interesting, Sonso. Absurdity, another great start to the week, Adrian. It's always a thrill to see one's art mentioned in your journal. Of course, Absurdity with a couple of works here. I want to extend a thanks not only to Nathan Sonic for creating the incredibly fun Journey Paint, which I'll have to try out, with which the shared art was created, but also Let's Glitch It, who created Bucket Bender, which was used to create the final art on object.com. These artists could have kept these apps to themselves and thereby the unique look and feel, but instead have chosen to share them with the broader community. It may seem a bit over the top to say, but in this time of global uncertainty, my faith in humanity is bolstered each and every day by the generosity I encounter in our small community of artists and collectors of art on the blockchain. And I believe it was the work on the left. Kind of has a Ukraine, I didn't realize there's a Ukraine yellow and blue. As I didn't see this either. So interesting work. Thank you for the comment. Absurdity. Nikki Rorschach. My comments are usually quite big. Excellent show. Inking my work while enjoying this. That makes me happy. I love it. A lot of people make their art while watching this show, so that is rad. Jan Lucas Magone, free again, exactly, out of the pen. As Waffles was playing it, Tornado, thank you for the comment. Martin Bruce, thanks for mentioning Test Drive Volume 1. Great show as always, Adrian. Thank you. Get them all in that open edition for four Tezos, and for about 4 or 5 Tezos. August Ground, horrific absurdity, I believe referring to the Die with the Most Likes piece. Juniper Paisley. Great to hear from you, August. Juniper Paisley, thank you for the comment. Eggly Illo, thank you for the comment. And this was actually a really nice comment. It was something like, this Renaissance will one day be studied for, like, the fact that it's been not celebrated, this uncelebrated Renaissance will one day be studied. That was a nice comment. Anyway, Die with the Most Likes also. Poco always knows a really thoughtful consideration of old shows and appreciate the acknowledgement of a shift to vague titles. Was really excited when I found a fitting one for this one. Create nothing, consume everything. So wonderful. Of course, I follow Die with the Most Likes. That is a glitch on X when you open a bunch of tabs. So thank you for all the nice comments here. All these great people here. Dude is on point. That is hilarious. So anyways, yeah, when you talk about Die with the Most Likes, it does expose you to other, a broader community with his huge base here. This is quite interesting. Lately, I've been using ChatGPT to strategize about the next steps in my art practice and career. Among other things, after uploading around 12,000 words of text and supporting material about me and my work, the insights it gave me are quite interesting. And so here it is. I don't know if I'm interested in the crypto art NFT space anymore. And ChatGPT, that's a completely rational position and honestly probably the correct one for someone like you. Here's the unfiltered truth according to ChatGPT on the NFT space. The NFT space is no longer an artistic frontier. Interesting. So I think what ChatGPT is thinking about is really what I loosely call, and not super, just loosely for the sake of crypto art. Referring to which includes PFPs, again, art that's embraced by the crypto community. Because I don't think ChatGPT is talking about object.com here, because that would just be inaccurate, right? It's a financialized, extractive system whose incentives favor speed, simplification, and speculation. The opposite of your practice, which is layered, recursive, and intellectually serious. In 2021-2022, NFTs briefly looked like they might enable a new kind of art world. Decentralized, artist-led, unconstrained by gatekeepers. In a sense, perhaps this small community is keeping this flame alive to a certain degree. And I don't know, in a sense, I don't mean the community in terms of this show, but I mean in terms of like object and like just the space in general. Or even beyond object, one could say, but I mean, it's like a few thousand people, maybe 2,000 people. Maybe that's to say too many. I don't know. The moment passed. So that moment passed. The current cycle is dominated by low effort, hype art, and memetics, largely decoupled from any deep cultural dialogue and increasingly indistinguishable from venture capital culture with a JPEG skin. Your work, which demands time, thought, and sensitivity, will always underperform in a market designed for virality and FOMO. Even art-focused collectors in Web3 are thinning out or consolidating around names they already know. Devastating, unfiltered truth from ChatGPT. A.L. Crago. Cryptart. I think means crypto art, but not sure. Crypto art is not a good place for professional artists, unless you have a cabal or a gallery behind you. It feels more like a sect that if you don't pledge, abide, and kneel in front of terms some dictate, you are canceled. This is not the future of art we dreamt of. So an interesting corollary here to ChatGPT, in a sense saying, I would argue, a similar thing. So interesting. This was great. So Momo, also known as Deadly Yuka, we actually have a work by Deadly Yuka, who makes those incredible kind of scenes from video game scenes that kind of look like art film. I've been using, in Japanese, I've been using Photoshop to draw pixel art for over 10 years. And a few months ago, I finally uninstalled everything yelling, F Adobe. But I have a lot of things I need to upload, so I'm reluctantly reinstalling it. The struggle is real for Momo. I wanted another reply that Momo is doing to their own tweet. I want to destroy the world that is built on Adobe. Well, I think it's happening, actually. I think it's in the process, even though it may not seem that way. The fact that anybody can start making their own tools with ChatGPT, what does that mean? Let's continue. Komiyama, well, this is Hermipe. Also translated from Japanese. I was stimulating at Fukaji Hiromasa's Digraph exhibition, Code to Graphic, by seeing the vivid output of source code and the way the combination of materials accentuated the materiality. In particular, the experience of being able to tinker with the numbers of the work gave me a sense of guilt. So I just love the Japanese perspective here, so you can play around with it. And Hermipe was feeling a little guilty at being able to change the work and what that meant. Cool looking work there too, and you got to love the physicality there, the physical representation. Very interesting from Hermipe. This is also Hermipe. The glitch expression of the Harajuku street shop I saw before has returned to the same place, although it has changed. If you look closely, it feels like a character set-like pattern appears from time to time. It's kind of funny. I have seen in Subway, I think it was in Rome, the Rome subway. I've seen one of my favorite glitches of all time. The sign was total. I think I took made an Instagram story of that for those that might remember. So here, just a natural glitch in the wilderness, courtesy of Hermipe. Very cool. Also, I believe now this is also Hermipe, pottery succulents. So 3D pixel art, basically a pixel art sculpture. Actually, is what I'm trying to say here. How interesting is this, or at least elements of pixel art here, or pixel art influenced sculpture? Very interesting, probably pretty reasonable here. As far as price, worth checking out, Kaneko. And so here, more physical pixel art here, or sculptural pixel art. We have the cat at the end of the path here, and here it is in bubble wrap here as well. So just too much fun over there in Japan. Arno Beck, check this out. So, sneak peek, on the occasion of a group show, Bel Etage in New York, I've teamed up with Marginal Editions to release a new letterpress print. Based on one of my typewriter drawings, the edition of 15 will officially drop at tomorrow's opening. So check this out. This is quite a video. Arno Beck is an awesome artist here. And look at how beautiful that print is. So you'll see how it's made. And it looks like it's just, this one layer here. And then a little bit of paint put onto this, printing device. And they put it through, and you get the spectacular letterpress print, as it's called here. So pretty cool process. And you see how nice that is. It's always interesting, especially, say, for pixel art, because you get that contrast, as I've long mentioned here, of when you do stuff like this. When you put pixel art physical, you get the contrast of the perfection of pixel art with reality. Kind of like we were seeing with Scammer and the textures earlier. These rough, there's a natural, there's rough pixelation. There's a natural contrast there, interestingly. And here, this is what I was talking about earlier, Richard Prince. So posters. So here, if you can see this, you see how Richard Prince is, doing some, I guess it would be, CMYK separation. And as you see, and anybody who's walked close to, street advertising, you'll start to notice this kind of, printing process. And what's interesting about this is how Richard Prince decides to, so you ask yourself, well, at least I ask myself, how was this, what is this? And here it is, Untitled 2016 Inkjet on Canvas. And you see how huge it is, by the way, a very important thing to know. 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters, this work here. And so you can imagine when the alchemy of scale, as I like to say, when this thing is blown up, how, we're getting half the experience here. We get a sense of it. But you can just imagine when this thing's 2.5 meters, and it's just inkjet. Right? Which kind of is interesting in and of itself, because it's basically taking a printing process and then it's kind of it's once again, we're pointing to the process, right? Of how the image is made. And we're kind of almost back to this traveling through the mediums discussion. This looks spectacular. So I guess this is at Max Hetzler Marfa. I'm glad they call it Hetzler too. I call it Hetzler for short. As well, as we get into the works here, here is spectacular work by Waffles, also known as Pinsteak. With that almost trademark grain here. Let's see if we can get some... Goes for 4 minutes. I didn't even notice that. That is crazy. So spectacular work here. And we just heard Kujeb is Pinsteak, who is Waffles. So a few different names here. And we just heard how it sounds like, if I understand the comment right, this is probably Fantavision then, modded out, basically, if I understand right, using basically AI tools to create your own version of Fantavision that you can push. So a very interesting way to kind of create a bit of a moat, because it's going to be harder to copy, which is an issue. And gives you your own identity. So a lot of incentive to, and love this, a lot of incentive to make your own work, make your own tools. So cool work from Waffles, epic 4-minute piece. Look at this. I mean, look at the market. Offer of 400 Tezos. Have any been accepted? None have been accepted. So I think you could put 800 Tezos. I'm not sure anybody would budge. Thank you, Waffles, for sending me one. Continuing on, Swozo. Let's see what Swozo is up to. See if we can get Swozo to play. Pray, my friends. We have to pray. Let me put this at the start. Forgive the pains, my friends. This is a one-take show. This is an opportunity as well to see Swozo, frozen here. Moments. Let me just try switching back to the regular internet here. Forgive me, my friends. Let us see if this works. Are you praying? I am praying. So it's unfortunate. There we go. I think we're gonna make it. Are we gonna make it? Okay, I think we have it. Love the almost like 2x1 distorted Photoshop canvas in the background underneath the water. Almost 2x1, but it's not. I love that idea. Brilliant. So kind of looking like some sort of magical, at the end of the river, yeah, like some sort of magical garden type thing. Almost has a bit of a Monet feel to it. And you have these, you're almost back to Scamra here, right? Or this notion of this very kind of rough, textured pixelation here. And then up here you get this little contrast here of these big pixels with these tiny pixels on top. Very interesting and beautiful. Sold to Absurdity for 230 Tezos. Nice sale. We're selling regularly at 230 Tezos. Kenix Zapata. Dos Cabezas, edition of 20 for 6 Tezos, still available. Based on Jean-Michel Basquiat, Dos Cabezas, 1982. I would bring that up, but I'm having so many issues. Looks like a pretty cool rendition here. Again, you see the textured pixels. Pretty interesting here on the face and everything on the outlines, I should say, of the face and the hair. Beautiful work from Kenix Zapata. I like the crop there too. That's in the pop art show. And Yuri J, who of course I follow, May. Here is what looks like a farmhouse. Almost looks, sometimes Yuri J seems to be experimenting with photography. Is this just an early point in the process? Interesting. So here, effects on effects, as we regularly say. Nice palette here too, from Yuri J. Cool title, May. And here, this is also part of Artie Hand's show. So we saw like a close-up, I think, a fragment in an earlier piece. So it should be an interesting show. Also texture here on with Yuri J. Kind of looks like a plant. Here is Enigmatris with another still life of fruit, doing very well here. Look at that, 375 likes, and again, combining different renderings of ASCII, PETSCII, Visual ASCII, the actual original. Brilliant and beautiful work from Enigmatris. Here's another one, nice and minimal. I'm not sure if we've seen this one before, but I wanted to return to it if we had, and there's something about the negative space. I'm kind of back to white. This weirdly, again, it's a weirdly powerful color when you say making works like this and otherwise. So I find interesting, just minimal palette here as well. A bit of a cream background there, almost looks like paper. Here's Uxine. Golf club, wrong place, Dread Co. So here we have another work, and I don't think Uxine uses AI, I thought, but maybe it's trying here. I'm not sure. And so Web 0, wrong time. So more just beautiful, comes out of zine culture, as you can see here. Nice minimal, incorporating more of this kind of neon orange or orange, almost actually not so neon orange, kind of a muted orange into the palette recently. It's starting to look like almost like a neon, like I remember from the Jail work that we saw with me in Jail that Uxine did. It's kind of like a blacklight, palette, interestingly. I love this, Mr. Dimitri. Great job. This is how I see it. Looks great. Continuing on, Robinson St. George. I think Absurdity posted this. A couple of people posted this. So let's take a look at the work. A Beautiful Nothing. Robinson St. George. I've never seen them before. It looks like this sold out. Kind of looks like a digital painting, doesn't it? So nice piece. Kind of like the stamp outline on the side in the margin there too. So I think this is, if I had to guess, I would say this is digital, but I'm not positive. Like maybe it says PNG. So unclear, but I would assume, interesting painting, regardless, I would assume digital. This is digital. This is the Myth, Pool Safari. So the Myth is playing a pool with what looks like the wrestler mask, a red sky. As you see, it's almost like canvas, a little bit of a textured background. Maybe that's the brush, but it does look like a little bit of a kind of almost like canvas-like background here. In certain areas, not sure you can see that, but you can see it kind of in the brush there, or here, or here. Perhaps it's the brush itself. It's hard to say. Love the subject matter here. And there's out of the front of the pool cue, the classic green and pink. This was quite funny, I thought. Classic Dan Control, America and Fountain. So taking previous elements and making a new work. So of course we've seen each of these works by themselves. Dan Control seeing the thematic link between the two and saying, let's put that on the same background, which he's also had before, and then make a new work and put it for sale. So one ETH. There's humor everywhere here. So a witty piece from Dan Control. We have paintings by Dan at the end of the show, some more, and they're spectacular. Dance. This is by Ezra Eslin. Oh, this is great. So again, a play off of Matisse's Dance, but a dance around a green candle. So number go up, and there's Ezra Eslin, little signature there. This is on that new platform. What is Infinite Ink.art, I think is what it's called. I've heard it compared to like a manifold for Tezos, interestingly. This is a beautiful piece. I really like the gray background and even like the white. I'm so superficial sometimes. Like the white margin, it adds to the piece, especially here. You see how the hair overlaps onto the white margin? Nice piece. And just nice homage. I guess you'd call that a pastiche. Quampa, The Arrival of Kalki. This is MS Paint. So new versions of MS Paint, I think, as you see, or at least like from the last 20 years. It's not from 98. Newer versions. I thought they got rid of Paint, so maybe this is like from 10 years ago. Not sure. But some new work here from Quampa, who has a gigantic following. Look at that, 1,500 likes. 21,000 followers, does really well. As you see, 3,000 likes, so Quampa. Breaking through, interestingly. Here is Yellow Yoke Mira. I think posted in the community, complete vacuum. So thank you for posting this and cool work here. Kind of has a physical and digital kind of feel to it. I assume it's a combination. but maybe it's just digital. It's interesting how it's getting harder to tell, and nice textured background here. So nice piece here. Fun piece. There's the void with the silence inside. This is called Complete Vacuum. Watercolor, ink, graphite on 640 gram paper, and digitally edited, so both. But it seems based on a physical and then basically finished digitally. Pretty cool. Edition of 10 for 10 Tezos. Here is Time, also known as Santiago, Demons in a Room with a Times painting in it. With a Time painted in it. I guess maybe that's the painting here. Or maybe this is the painting. Love this piece. I think Sabato retweeted this. Very cool. Nice piece. Interesting piece. Here's Walk 35. So I think continuing the Guantanamo, where it's like the subject matter has been abstracted, but the subject matter that was probably, burnt into our brains, for those of us that are old enough to remember a couple of decades ago, of Guantanamo Bay, and so then turned into a pretty abstract, interesting, very interesting, conceptual work here. And, technically and like beautiful, like, in terms of the result, aesthetically, which is part of the discomfort that you experience in this work. So under the series, The War, to me, that's the tension of that whole series. And you can get those things for like $5 sometimes if you're lucky. Here's Momo, who we were hearing from struggling with Photoshop in the intro. Look at that, 92 retweets, 18,000. So Momo doing fabulously here. And again, you see what looks like these video game screens, but kind of a texture-ish, textured, kind of fuzzed out retro screens. Let's see if we can get I'm not sure if I don't see the translation, unfortunately, here. Here is Gogolitis and Retromani. So we're discussing this piece. So it was, in fact, Gogolitis, especially in the background there. So pretty fun, kind of a vaporwave kind of vibe. So that looks like Retro Man on a motorbike. And we switch from kind of a pixelated, good solution. We switch from a pixelated Gogolitis remix to just the polyhedrons, octagons that are the original, I would guess. Music by Retromani as well, produced with Logic. That was becoming a pretty good software. It always was back in the early 2000s. It was kind of the main software you wanted to use. One of them in Pro Tools. Anyways, let's not get distracted. Infinite Realms. This sold out at 26 Tezos. So now $58.99 on secondary. And here, some close-ups is Gogolitis shows here. So pretty useful. So interesting kind of masking, perhaps. Interesting stop here. And here some more. So you see all the detail. It's a good idea when you have a detailed work to show the close-ups. Here is Javier Montero. Endless Landscape. So this is on Object, edition of 100 for 2 Tezos. I think this is a newer work. I don't know if I've ever seen this artist before. I think I came across it on X. So someone probably tweeted out that they had collected it. It's a very powerful tool, that share tool that Object has. Let's see how this is doing. 88 left, so 12 gone. And maybe it was Retromani or Kika. Someone posted it. Yeah, cool work there. Here's Mason the Third. Mason the Third Party bootleg. So a retro glitch ROM, Nintendo glitch ROM, corrupted. I have some of my favorite NFTs. Mason the Third, one of my favorites I bought, I think for 50 Tezos, when Tezos was like $1.50, $2, but I love that piece. I'll have to dig that up sometime. My internet sucks right now. But I think I started the show maybe with it, or maybe it was halfway through the show. That was a couple of years ago. Loacme, do you think they're debating their simulation hypothesis? So this is pretty cool. This is a combination of, or a collaboration between Loacme and Kareem Safa. Kind of has a bit of a I'd say like Ultima vibe, Ultima 4, as you see with the bricks especially. But also here kind of looks like the dungeon, and doing a variation on it with this kind of tiling meets 3D. So again, we're back to these different kind of visual perspectives of these old video games where they're just trying to do something that is good enough. They're not trying to be, they're being as realistic as they can be. So when you're in the dungeon, you get this top right kind of view, which is more 3D. And then when you're playing the regular game, it's more of a top down, but again, this kind of simultaneous perspective. So here are some examples of the works, and they are on highlight.xyz, as you see here. So this is like one of the works, Vista number 95. But you can buy it for 38 ETH. So as you see here, all sorts of cool generative art project. Generative art Vista. It reimagines the visual language of early video games to explore the nature of artificial ecosystems. Here is Renato Marini, Reboot Fountains. So cool pixel artist here. A bit of 0.08, so not bad at all. Maybe $180, $160. Here in this original pixel art work of what looks like a fountain, and beautifully that water just shimmering. Kind of looks like a garden in the background and these big cubes. Just really cool. Auction ends in 6 hours. Sachku. The Arty, A New Beginning. So here we have perhaps a preview of a work, again playing with a circuit board with an eye in the middle. Here's an artist I hadn't seen before, Coag, I don't think. Kind of a gaming vibe to this pixel art work. Look at that, 359 retweets, 37,000 views. Showing there's an appetite, like an enjoyment for pixel art and this kind of gaming vibe. Quite interesting. Here is Back to Kaneko. And this is posted by Ban8ku, who shows a lot of Kaneko's work, if I'm not mistaken. But definitely looks like the cat works we were seeing earlier on. So Japanese pixel art here. And here is eBoy Arts, beautiful work. Love the colors here. And yeah, kind of a beach sunset meets Barbie or something. Just beautiful work here. Kind of looks like a Lego brick. Nice piece. And here's Element Lee, Carboniferous. And almost looking or sounding like the land before time here, like ancient, archaic, nature, perhaps. Done all on a phone, I believe. 256 pixels. So nice small canvas here too. That's posted on Instagram. Here's Francois Gamma with a really cool work, super cool. As Antonin Work says, no title here, but again, playing with the walking figure. And here, another variation. And here is another abstract by the super prolific Francois Gamma. So nice work here. Maybe some of these are still being minted on Rodeo. Was putting out a lot of work there. Rodeo really worked for Francois Gamma because it was kind of pixel art, and Francois Gamma was so prolific that it kind of worked. If you get $30 or $40 each, that's a good situation. But I think it dried up a bit, the entire platform. But I don't know. I haven't been there recently. Falls. So new work by Feels. Of course, we started the show a couple of episodes ago by Feels. Look at how beautiful this is. So another labor here of an animated abstract, a few pixels kind of shining through barely, and then we get this cool, almost waterfall-like situation here, shimmering over the edge. Just beautiful work from Feels called Falls. And this, I believe, is sold out at 77 Tezos, actually at 88 at the end. So nice work from Feels. Bosque Gracias, a few really cool videos here. I don't know what it is about juxtaposition and Bosque Gracias, but and me being all over it, but this looks fabulous. Fabulous. Not quite sure what's going on here. Kind of looks like an abstract, some interesting color. Very nice. Void, edition of 1, only 22 Tezos. Here's another one, Intimacy, edition of 1, 22 Tezos. I'm getting tempted here. So here, up close, beautifully textured, analog video glitch. Beautiful. And this one is burned And this was 1 Tezos. I wonder if this will reappear. Very nice work here with yellow. So it's like red, green, or red, blue, or red, orange, and yellow. Not sure. Anyways, really cool series from Bosque Gracias. Here's Gino. A Wasei. So very heavily textured and kind of almost like truly glitched out here, like a TV that's broken. So cool effect here, looking very authentic. This is an edition of 1, picked up for 30 Tezos at auction by Absurdity, the patron. Here's Ex-Mortal, edition of 13. This is 30 Tezos, and this was just transferred to previous collectors, I believe. So nice, another beautiful analog video glitch sunset, courtesy of Ex-Mortal, Terminus 1. And here's Klaus, composition 454. And a nice minimal composition here, in a nice color here too, and cool frame, how it just goes across 3 sides. This is an edition of 1 and sold to Made You Look for 21 Tezos. And here's Perfect Loop, fall off point. This is on X, but probably on Object as well. There's no links, so I just put it on the X, and sometimes it's a smaller file, which is a little easier for me. So nice, cool animation. Here's Psychofuturist. I'm not the god of war, I'm the god of violence. So kind of a ping pong and horror, perhaps. Not sure the combination here. Interesting kind of enigmatic piece. And here's Nisus. I think you'd say telemetry. Telemetry. So another interesting kind of animated work. I thought this was pretty cool too. Pretty rad. Star Wars, courtesy of AJ Generated. Not sure if this is AI or what it is, but it's pretty rad. And here is Renki, Open Object. Interesting is the name of the series. Edition of 1, and this is 15 Tezos at auction. So you can bid on a Renki 1 of 1. 3, 4 colors there. Here is Tukes on Object. So interesting AI flowers, courtesy of Tukes, who just made a nice sale actually on Super Rare. So this was a 1 of 1. This went for 500 Tezos, nice sale, and just made a sale to X copy for picking up the visible and the invisible on Super Rare. Your first grab of my glitch relics back in 2021 amplified my voice. Feels right to cross paths again. Thank you for the continued face. So very nice piece here from Tukes, another AI piece. And here's Yoa-In, Grids Pattern Systems, kind of a break a little bit from Yoa-In's previous work. Like you can see certain elements that are similar, particularly perhaps the textures and the kind of almost the random kind of edges, the organic edges. So I believe this is on Object 1 that Yoa-In has a show. So here we go, Chrono Grid. So a new series from Yoa-In, who told me how to pronounce their name way back when, a couple of years ago. Yoa-In Chrono Grid, and here you see, and this can be on Object 1, a drop on May 8th, so tomorrow. And as we run through here, no hygiene. Here is another wild AI artwork from No Hygiene. And here's another one. I thought this was pretty cool too. ADHD, kind of enigmatic, obscure a little bit. What does it mean? Pretty cool. Love this nugget brain. Into the physicals we go. These, I believe, are paintings. They are. So playing off of those stickers, just classic nugget brain here. Looks like a great opening. I believe this is in Copenhagen, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. Just rad artist, as you see. Great sense of color. Very fun artwork here, as you can tell. Great artist. Here's Dan Control. We looked at some of these before, and so here are a few more from the current show, basically painting inside some magazines. And here you see different colors. So nice handling of the brush here from Dan Control. Here is Ricardo Passaporte, cool airbrush work. Here is Walk. Love this, David Byrne. Hilarious, great portrait. And here is Lee Canyo, acrylic on canvas. And here you see some CDs awesomely Japanese packaging. You see acrylic on canvas, I believe. Yeah, I mean, gorgeous work. Great subject. Ben Steyer, a group of small paintings. So this is online on Instagram. And here is what won Chuck Cluckenbell. Interesting painting. This was, I thought maybe, no, this isn't It's Not Gallery, but kind of looks like the It's Not Gallery curation. Cool, just original painting. And here's another one. This is It's Not Gallery, Kim Hee-jun. So kind of a humorous work here. Looks like a dinosaur head. And here's Societe Berlin. So not sure who is the artist here. Connie Meyer, I believe, is the artist. And here, maybe Petra Courtwright? Doesn't look like, it is Petra Courtwright. Interesting. Who, what I remember, would put, just print out on the canvas. And that's your show, my friends. I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, take care.